The following that you are about to watch is an honest thoughts video recorded by a very sleepy person. So, honest thoughts oftentimes like they're the truth, and sometimes the truth can upset people. And so, I hope no one will be upset by this video. But if you are, you are. But this is just my honest thoughts on something. I'm going to try to be as honest and true to what I actually think as I can, because I haven't done a video on Star Wars in a very long time, as regular viewers might notice. Um, that's because I don't have anything to say about it, in that I'm not watching anything new from Star Wars. But what kind of represents where I'm going to go with this video is this faded Star Wars shirt that I'm wearing represents my fandom. Now, last year I did a video called Why I Stopped Caring About Star Wars, and that was one of the first videos that ever picked up on my channel. And my purpose of that video was to try to get out my feelings emotionally, and to put a lid on the whole Star Wars thing, and to just be really honest emotionally about how it is. Not angry, just honest emotionally about how I feel about where Star Wars has gone, and how Star Wars once was even bigger than Marvel, and it was like the most important like piece of modern day art. Like it was this series that anybody could be invested in, anybody could feel included in being that and part of that fandom, anybody could be a part of that Star Wars universe. It was like so important. Like I couldn't remember a time when I hadn't seen Star Wars. Like if you were a child, you had to see Star Wars. It's like a part of Star Wars was a part of life. Like that was what Star Wars was. So this incredibly important series for everyone, and once again, it was bigger than even the MCU. Such an important series. And then what happened when The Last Jedi came out, I still remember what it was like being there when it had finished, and just seeing that movie kind of systematically tear down everything about Star Wars, from the characters to the universe, how the rules worked, and all that kind of stuff. And sitting there in the theater 7 years ago with this feeling like the wind had been taken out of my sails, like, eh, and it's a feeling that I will now describe as the profound feeling that something had been taken away permanently when you saw The Last Jedi. But perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself, but that was definitely what everyone will recognize as the shifting point in the Star Wars fan base, where at the very, very least, things became much more divided, though I think something even worse than even that happened. But as the undying optimist, I had optimism that things could maybe change going forward. I didn't really expect much for the rise of Skywalker, obviously, but there were those times going forward. For example, I'll admit this. When Luke Skywalker in deep faked form came out in The Mandalorian Season 2, I knew it was just key jangling and all that stuff, but it gave me a little hope that maybe they cared about what the fans wanted and what we wanted to see, and that maybe we'd see change there. No such change happened. So, in that Star Wars video I made, I said that Obi-Wan was the last time I dared let myself get hopeful for something Star Wars related, and it's true, because I had hope for Ian McGregor coming back, going back into the prequels world, and exploring that, and the characters weren't themselves, and the universe was dull. And here's the thing about Disney Plus shows, especially for Star Wars, but talk about live action, is they're so slow and meandering, and there's just nothing entertaining about them, and that's how I feel about Obi-Wan. My brother actually went back and watched Ahsoka, and it was the same thing, and it was awful. I had no investment at that time, but I saw parts of it, and it was awful. So yeah, when it comes to like Star Wars: The Acolyte, which is the most recent show that has come out, I'm like, you might be wondering, why didn't you do a video on it? Well, I'm like, I have zero. I can't. I have negative interest in that. I didn't even watch the trailer when it came out. I had so little interest, I didn't watch the trailer. And then a week or so went by, and I thought, well, maybe I should watch that trailer just to stay up on what's happening. And I got like 5 seconds in, and I shut it off. I went to the Phantom Menace screening, and I think we'll get to that later. I went to the Phantom Menace 25th anniversary screening, and me and my brother stayed there, and we had a great time. And we stayed all the way through the credits to hear the lovely John Williams score. But then they're like, "Stay tuned for a preview of the Acolyte," and then the Acolyte trailer starts playing after the Phantom Menace because they just want you to see the trailer so much. And we were like, "Yeah, we're gonna go," because it's kind of like in a sitcom where you have that one character that you never see and you almost see them, but you never see them. That's me with the Acolyte trailer. I've never seen the trailer even. I have no interest in seeing anything about it because Star Wars is not the universe that I knew it to be. It doesn't have any sort of coherent story where I know where it's going. Things keep changing, and the fan base has the what's left of the fan base has become a miserable thing to be a part of. So, explaining that, let's go back to what it was like to be a part of the Star Wars fan base. Like, again, it's like anyone could have been a fan of Star Wars originally. It didn't matter who you were, didn't matter your gender, didn't matter any of that. Everybody was going to be into Star Wars because it was for everyone. And there were just characters that you could root for. It was a universe that you really wanted to be invested in. You really wanted to spend time in. Kids could enjoy it. Adults could enjoy it. And it was such an important thing. And the themes about, overcoming tyranny and heroism and all that stuff, it was very universal stuff. And the reason why I want to get into that is that there's a lot of talk about inclusivity when it comes to Star Wars these days. And what I really think about, and I just like to stay on the outside of it now and all of that silly arguments. But when I think about inclusivity in Star Wars, I feel like with the Star Wars of old, I never felt excluded from that fan base ever. I never felt excluded at all. And, sometimes when I was younger, when I was really little, there were some boys who would be mean to me. But when it came to Star Wars, it's like, no one is excluding you from being a fan of that. Boys aren't excluding you from being a fan of that because anybody can be a fan of Star Wars. And so I never felt excluded from the Star Wars fan base until The Last Jedi. I never felt excluded until The Last Jedi, where all of a sudden I saw everything just sort of ripped away from it, and even its own story ripped away from it, because there was a moment in The Last Jedi. It was when Rey and Kylo were about to team up and abandon the dark side and the light, and I'm like, okay, I would have never seen this with George Lucas Star Wars. This is place that I never thought they would ever go, or that you could go, but it's wild and interesting. Let's see where it goes. Nope. Reverse of that too, because that's what The Last Jedi was. It was a reversal and a reversal and a reversal. It's not really a movie. It's more like just things collapsing in on each other, and that's what the art is. It's not art though. But it was kind of that moment where you saw Luke die at the end of The Last Jedi, where it's like, that's the end. I remember thinking to myself, I've lived too long. I've lived to see Star Wars be dead. And honestly, that was the end of it, where everything that unified us, that we understood about this universe, broke apart. And what followed in the years to come is just no happiness. Star Wars made people happy before. It was a good escape. And now it's just constant arguing, constant arguing, constant debating, constant misery. Like you see it in, I'll use Obi-Wan as an example. It's like Star Wars is always depressing now. It's always cynical. I mean, I guess maybe not always. Sometimes it gets really silly, but like, a lot of Star Wars just comes off as just straight up depressing to me now. And once again, I listen to what everyone's saying about Star Wars and everyone on YouTube, and obviously the words have come to my attention saying that what's happening with Star Wars now is it's been turned into a girls' brand, and that's the problem, that it's meant for boys, and they turned it into a girls' brand, and no one wants to watch that because it's not what it is. But I'm like, referring to something like Ahsoka, for example, I'm like, see anything here that is appealing to me as a woman. I don't see anything here that seems like it's meant to be appealing to me as a woman. Like, if you want to see something girly, look at Barbie or something. Like, that's girly. That's appealing to women, and it was as successful as that. But when you say that Star Wars has been turned into a girls' brand, I'm like, what do you mean? Because is it just because there's female characters there? I'm like, I don't see anything there that's appealing to me in Star Wars. I don't see anything in the Acolyte from what I have seen in it and the promotions that they try to push to me that is appealing to me as a woman. So, who is it for? Like, that's more what I'm thinking of as the Star Wars today. When I look at Star Wars, I don't think, oh, this is meant to be for women now. It's like, who is this for? I don't understand what Star Wars is for now. It's just sort of this constant infighting. It feels like there's the people who are making it, the people who are mad about it, and then a small strain of people who will just like everything and shill for everything. And that's just getting so dull because there's just so little people that are invested in this universe anymore. And so that's why I've just like completely tuned out, because it's not what I've enjoyed. It's not anything that appeals to me. It's not anything that is giving me any kind of happiness. And that's what I really want to get to, because I do a lot of rants on characters and things on this channel. And some people would say, why do you care so much? It doesn't really matter. If something is bad, then just move on from it or something like that. Well, here's why it matters. And a lot of people think that art doesn't matter and that our connection to art doesn't matter. Here's the thing. How can I explain this well? The other day, I was watching Schindler's List, and I was watching it for the very first time ever. Ironically, that is a movie that Kathleen Kennedy was an executive producer on. It was directed by Steven Spielberg. And that movie did what a movie is supposed to do. It gave me an experience. It made it so I could not feel what was happening on the screen. It made it so it was impossible for me to not feel something for the Jews being murdered as depicted in the movie. That happened in real life, obviously. It made it so I couldn't not feel what was going on with those characters. It drew me in and it gave me an experience. And with that, it became very thought-provoking and emotionally provoking about, what happened. It exposed me to a story that I hadn't heard before about a person who was very greedy, and then it became about saving people, and then it became about, in his eyes, that I hadn't saved enough people. And that part really got me when you have Liam Neeson at the end of the movie, angry with him. So he's got all the people that he saved there, all 1,100, but he starts bawling and berating himself because he didn't save one more person and he could. And that part got me so much. I watched it over and over again, you know, about just feeling for this person that did so much more than anybody else had did, but he still felt that it wasn't enough. That gave me a really human experience. It made me experience something that I hadn't before. It made me understand somebody's mindset that I hadn't before. And it was a really profound thing for me to see that. And that is what movies and stories do. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to give you something. And it's not always happiness, and it's not always pure escapism. They can teach you something. Sometimes they don't. But what movies and stories do is they give you something. They can give you understanding. They can give you feeling. They can give you a connection, a human connection. And that is why, at their best, movies and stories can change your life quite literally. I can think of movies that changed my life, like the excitement that I got from the Avengers when it came out, and the characters who were both exciting but flawed, and how that changed my life and made me want to tell stories and make movies. I can think of the Disney movies that I grew up with that gave me a profound experience and that always stuck with me. And the different characters from books and comics. I can think of growing up with the Lord of the Rings and just the spirituality of those movies, the very spiritual themes, and themes about materialism and things like that. And just the experience of those movies and stories where it feels like the characters aren't real, but they are. And it almost feels like you've known people through them, and what it's given to you to be able to, know those experiences without being in any danger yourself, but to just know those experiences and how they affect your understanding of everything in the world. And so that is the importance of stories and entertainment and movies and all that kind of stuff. And that is like the height when you have a story, like it could be the original Star Wars, a story that really affects you in a positive way, that really connects with you. Like, it becomes like a bright light in your life almost. And well, and so the truth of that is, though, is that there is the reverse of that, the best movies and stories will give you something, and they will be really helpful to you, but the worst stories and things like that will take something away. And that's what I really felt when I watched The Last Jedi and when it ended, and I said, I've lived too long. I knew that I had just seen the Star Wars fan base, everything that was, the community that was, be destroyed. I felt like something had been just taken away from me. And that is what it's like. That's what it's like with the Disney Star Wars since then. And like I said, there were some times where I felt like there was an attempt to maybe change things and try to appeal to fans again. Even seeing people get excited over Baby Yoda, like, and seeing people in real life wearing merch from that. That was maybe the last gasp of it, the community that Star Wars would create, even though it was just shallow merchandise. But everything I see from Star Wars now is like you're just taking something away from me, and you're not understanding what you're doing, like on a very profound level, because once again, I think that a lot of people who even work on these things don't really understand the power of story and the power of movies, and they just say, oh, this is just some stupid nerd thing and the stupid nerds are upset with it or something. um they don't really seem to realize the taking something away aspect of it, taking something away very important, and how that really feels to people and how sad that is. The Acolyte doesn't really look interesting at all to me. It looks very eh. The universe already had things pulled down and taken down by The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. What I'm hearing, there has been a rumor going around that what they intend to do in the next episode of The Acolyte is turn the Force into a female entity or something like that. And that's just silly to me. It's like, that's not what Star Wars is. I remember when people were mad about midi-chlorians being invented and destroying the mystique of the Force, but that whole the Force is female thing is really silly to me. But I'm like, I'm not a person here who is anti-feminist, that women have no problems in the world and there's nothing that we could fix. No, I think that women do have problems in the world that are serious things, like harassment in the workplace and stuff like that, actual serious things that have happened in Hollywood, perpetuated by Harvey Weinstein, which the woman who is making The Acolyte used to be his assistant, his personal assistant, which guilty by association might not be a thing you want to go to until you remember those stories about how Harvey Weinstein used to have his assistants like book people for him to literally assault. So I might get in trouble for this comparison, but it's almost like if you were making Schindler's List and there was a producer on it who had been a member of the Third Reich. You might have questions about what's going on here. You're making a show that you say is supposed to be feminist, but you've got Harvey Weinstein's ex-personal assistant working on it. Anyway, what I'm getting at here is what they should very well know is that there are definitely problems that women face in real life, and that I think we should take seriously, and that I think we should take actual measures to try to fix and make better. But when I'm thinking about feminism, and I mean a good version of feminism where it's about equal rights, it's about solving the actual problems that women might have in the world. I'm not thinking, what does Star Wars do to fix that? Like, what does modern day Star Wars do to fix that? Because this is going back to the whole thing, oh, Star Wars is just for women because they're trying to do a lot of feminist things. I'm like, what about Star Wars is really, modern day Star Wars is really pro women? Like, you're putting a lot of female characters in there, but they're not good characters. Like, no hate at all to Daisy Ridley. She's been really cordial with fans. None of it was her fault that happened, but Rey was kind of a lightning rod for the discussion about how badly written a lot of female characters are today. And coming off of that, Daisy Ridley has not had much of a career. And same with Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose. That was a hated character, and she has not had much of a career since then. She was Raya and the Last Dragon, but ever since then, I haven't seen her in anything. So I'm like, what is really feminist about having a bunch of bland characters that really aren't characters? They don't have anything to them. Back to Ahsoka saying this is something obviously for women. I'm like, because it has a bunch of cardboard cutout female characters that don't have personalities or really deep relationships or anything? I don't think so. I'm like, what is really feminist about this? It's not. You're not doing anything to help women anywhere by having a bad Star Wars show with characters no one likes that go on to not help the careers of these women who play them, but hinder them. The only thing that these female characters have done is create a lot of negativity and a lot of negative discussion around female characters. And most of it does not come from people who are actually sexist. Most of it comes from people who legitimately do have criticisms. However, let me explain this, and I want it to come out the right way. When you have, I have seen some sexism and misogyny around the discussion of female characters. And here's why that happens. When you have a lot of negative discussion around something like female characters are done badly, then somebody can or just, dogging on a bad female character, then somebody who actually is misogynistic can come in and insert themselves into that conversation and make it, join in on the dogpiling one from them. It's coming from more of a misogyny than actually caring. You can have, when you have a lot of negativity towards something like for some female characters, then you can have those kinds of people insert yourself in. So those people will always exist. I don't think that, but most people, I think, when they criticize female characters in Star Wars, it's coming from a place of these are badly written female characters. But either way, when I think about what the modern day Star Wars has actually done for women in entertainment, it's like you've just made more toxicity around it. You've just given an avenue for people to become more angry at female characters. And now it seems whenever there is a female character who's supposed to be an action hero, it's now people really attack that and really write it off, I think. After we had made a lot of progress with getting female action heroes out there, but it just seems that the door has been open for more toxicity on that angle. And so that's kind of all that I see that Star Wars promotion of female characters has done. It's just, it's made it so you have characters no one likes and that most people criticize, and that now the door is open for female characters in general to get a lot more criticism, female action heroes, I mean. And so it's like you've kind of made it worse in entertainment for female characters and to be to be in part of discussions like this, because we never had to have discussions about, oh, Star Wars was a boys thing, it's just a boys thing. It probably had more male fans, but we never needed to like defend it as, no, this is a boys thing before. But now some people are feeling like they have to defend it as that because they feel like that's the reason why it's being changed. And so when it comes to inclusivity in Star Wars, I'm like, you've made me feel more excluded than ever. And I'm not talking about the fans or the people getting defensive. I'm talking about the people who started this whole argument, this whole toxicity in the first place, the people who are actually making modern Star Wars, who didn't need to make it what it is now. It's just a miserable thing to be around. However, I do want to say that I'll always love the original Star Wars films. I went to The Phantom Menace this year, and even though with all its flaws, I had a better time in that movie than any other movie that I've seen this year. I had a better time with that than even Dune, because it was a great crowd. It was just an entertaining movie, even with its flaws. And, you know, there were so many books and comics and so many things published for Star Wars that could feed the fandom forever. And I would recommend people, instead of watching Star Wars The Acolyte, you know, go back to those things and be a fan of those things. Be a fan of those things, and so we can keep that universe alive, because those things will give you something. Anybody who is watching modern day Star Wars will just have something taken away that's going to make you more miserable. You should stay away from it. These are not made currently by people who care about how you feel. They are just there to drum up more, make it for themselves, and drum up even more toxicity. You know, a lot of these articles I see coming out, I'm like, you posted that because you wanted to get people riled up and arguing with each other, and that is not what Star Wars was supposed to be about. Star Wars was supposed to be unifying, and you know, Kathleen Kennedy is a horrible businesswoman. She used to work on as an executive producer on films that actually mattered, like Schindler's List I mentioned. But it's like, you know, theaters could really use a good Star Wars film right now. I mean, if you, assuming that you hadn't ruined this fan base. You know, one of the things that has come up about why theaters are dying is because we're becoming so divided. There's nothing to really connect people anymore, and we become so divided on media. You know, maybe if only you had like a unifying Star Wars film that could have come out right now and saved those theaters and saved the Hollywood industry, that would have perhaps meant a lot more than just I don't know, dunking on the chuds with these new series or stuff. How do you have the most prolific, the most popular franchise in the world? You have decades of experience as an executive on many successful films, and you run it into the ground. And you take, after decades of progress of actually getting female action heroes on the screen and getting them successful, actually having more roles for female characters coming out, you take all of that progress and you throw it in the trash because of all your silly antagonism that you've done with it. You take actresses who are hopeful to have careers, and you put a doorstopper on that because you give them horrible roles and you set them up to take the fall for your bad decisions. Anyway, yeah, not going to be watching Star Wars The Acolyte, not going to be watching anything from modern day Star Wars. If Star Wars ever changes, it will be such a major shift. I will know when it's happening, and then I will come back, but I'm not watching anything now. But I just want to say, as a female fan, I never felt excluded from the original Star Wars fan base, but I feel excluded now. And it's just so sad to see these narcissists like take over and taint something that they never understood what it meant to people, or they would have never made these decisions in the first place. Or maybe they did understand that it meant something to people, and that's why they did it, because I'm not convinced that this is by accident at all. But that's all I got for you guys today. I'm gonna have a positive video for you. We recorded a positive video that is gonna be coming out very soon, talking about comics. Thank you, patrons, as always, for supporting this channel. If you want to support this channel, you can check out the link to Patreon below. And I'm working on my own scripts and short films right now because I want to make my own stuff to give people a positive experience with art and to use movies to the best of what they're supposed to be used for, you know, to really give people something. So that's what I'm doing out here on this channel. If you want to support that, you can once again check out my Patreon. Thank you so much for watching this video. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you disagree with what I'm saying? I'm still very tired. All of this was made with me very tired, but that's all I got for you guys today. I will see you guys next time.